Well, thank you. Well, let's jump right into it. So, I think intuitively many of us know that winter operations provides a significant challenge for airlines. So just to name a couple of facts here to just show the extent of how big it is. So the runway capacity at most airports in winter conditions, so meaning either drifting snow or some snow on the ground, etc., goes down by as much as half. And knowing of how busy airports were prior to COVID-19 and hopefully again soon, you can see how that is a significant challenge. Looking at delays, about 4 times the delays happen in winter months than they would in summer months. That's just the straight numbers, and so the impact of winter on just on-time performance and reliability is clear. In a single airport like Chicago, you're going to talk about over thousands or so flights being impacted, either canceled or in this case canceled or delayed further by a big weather system. So when a storm front comes through, it can completely ground the system, in whole regions. And then lastly, just on de-icing alone, not even considering any of the delays or impacts of dislocation and reprotection, you're talking over $1 billion a year spent in an industry that in a good year makes $30 billion in profit, right, globally. And so these numbers are significant and meaningful. And so winter operation is a big cost driver and a big driver of passenger dissatisfaction and a big driver of inefficiencies. And so it's something where I think airlines are keen to drive further efficiencies, and technology might provide some of those. Let's jump to the next slide here to make this a little bit concrete. We all think of winter as a romantic, winter wonderland. The snow comes down and it feels nice and cozy in front of the fireplace. But I can tell you, when you're in the airline operation, that feeling drifts away pretty quickly, and you start getting to terms with the reality of winter operations. So let's go on further slide to see what kind of the challenges are here. So what you'll see here is a number of issues called out that are caused by winter operations, right? Poor visibility, snow or ice on the ground, snow or ice accumulating on aircraft wings, or even just the temperature and the risk of ice creates a number of new processes, right? So for one, you have to inspect the aircraft before you taxi out. You have to keep the gate areas clean and free of ice for personal safety of the people working there, but also for the aircraft. As you kind of taxi to the runway, you might have to de-ice the aircraft or even anti-ice it. And so applying a liquid, usually an alcohol-based liquid, that will take off the ice or snow on the wings and on the fuselage and prevent, for the next couple of minutes or hours, additional ice or snow sticking to it. And so it creates an additional process in de-icing, as you see at the bottom right here. And there's a number of issues that come with that. It's hard to really get the sequencing right, to have aircraft line up for de-icing, be ready for de-icing, come out of de-icing. And so there's going to be wait times. We're spraying a lot of de-icing fluid, and generally speaking, it's humans that apply it out of a bucket on top of a crane on top of a car, and so the precision of the application is not very high, and as a result, we overspray and we waste quite a bit of fluid. Some of that gets recaptured, but still. And then it's hard to assess the conditions afterwards. As a pilot, how do you know for sure that your fuselage and your wings have been de-iced after de-icing? You have someone on the outside telling you that they did. Maybe you walk backwards, look out the windows, and sometimes you see when the pilots come back after de-icing, that's what they do. They look out the windows to look at the wings to see if they're clear. But it's a pretty archaic way of doing it. And then you get to the runway, you're not quite sure, how bad the snow is around you. And so you're not quite sure how long the wings will stay free. So there's a lot of safety buffer built into those times. And that's just the aircraft flow. And then on top of that, you have to actually keep the surfaces clear. So you need labor and equipment, snow plows, but you only need them some days in the year. And so how do you best staff for that? So as you can see, there's a lot of uncertainty in the process. So that's where we get excited about technology. So if we go to the next slide, please. Let's imagine for a moment we were in the year 2025 or 2030, and what would this look like if we really leverage technology into winter operations? We'd have granular real-time situational awareness of conditions. So we would know in real time, what do the different aircraft surfaces look like? How much snow or ice is on them? How much is coming down? How much is the temperature? We would know the same for aircraft in a more sophisticated way than a pilot looking out of the window. we would have advanced weather forecasting system that also go very granular. So we can directly integrate that into the airport planning. So we know much more granular than today when the snow and ice will come in, when the temperatures will be in critical conditions, and so can plan for it much better and adjust in real time. We would have optimized precision application of intervention. So interventions being either spraying or even snow removal, but just being much more precise in the way we use the icing fluids, in the way we use snow plows, in the way we we use holdover times, etc. Would be kind of the next step there. Real-time coordination across a range of stakeholders and processes. Excuse me. Making sure that everyone who's involved in the process has the same information and operates in the same level of planning, right? So do you have the ground handlers who might do the de-icing spraying, you have the airport who coordinates taxiways and snow removal, you have ATC who controls parts of the departure, and a whole bunch of other stakeholders like the airlines, et cetera. And so making sure that they all work together on the same information in a coordinated way. Optimize buffer placement to minimize waste. So in aviation, we place a lot of buffers for safety and for reliability. And, some of those buffers we set up 20, 30, 50 years ago when we didn't have a lot of good information and a lot of, call it advanced analytics. And so maybe it's time to reduce some of those. And if we could be more precise in knowing what we do and use more input, we could be reducing some of those buffers. And then lastly, automating some of the manual processes to help with some of the labor issues that winter operation brings, both from a safety perspective, not have people slip, but also from a unpredictability of when you need the labor and how do you keep it for some of these events. So that would kind of be the dream world. A couple of ways we're going to get there, which is mostly around technology here. So we group this into 4 opportunity themes. There's a theme around improving forecasts, right? So if we use micro weather forecasts, if we use taxi and de-icing time forecasts that are a bit more, call it advanced than many of the deterministic just lookup tables we have today. Have a broad network of IoT sensors, ways to assess the current conditions that would then feed forecasting. That will be kind of that bucket. The second bucket is optimizing buffers. I talked about a little already, which is how do we think about minimizing some of the buffers which were in place because we had uncertainty, but if we can reduce uncertainty, how do we reduce some of the buffers around it? The third one is about augmenting and automating, right? Augmented reality de-icing, for example, when the de-icing operator has technology support to really know what has he sprayed, what has he not sprayed, or where could she be more efficient and provide some feedback, are systems that are slowly becoming a reality. And then the last one is integrated decision making. And how do we make sure we use the same data across all stakeholders and use graphical situational awareness and decision support tools to really allow people to make better decisions, more data-based decisions, and more coordinated decisions. So a whole bucket of ideas here, and we'll go into some of those details later. So maybe then in closing, next page, please. What could this all mean, right? We talked a little about the big impact of winter operation earlier, and we're never going to get rid of all of it. But a couple of encouraging pointers that we see from current applications. So better prediction and coordination of de-icing platforms could bring a 30% increase in effectiveness of de-icing systems. We've already seen that in practice. Now casting systems create more precise weather forecasts. We've seen 50% reduction in weather-related downtime in some operations from just better forecasting and knowing better how to coordinate. And then lastly, active sensors that monitor the runways for unsafe conditions and allow us to bring down some of these buffers. Again, in some of these cases, we've seen a 3.5% increase in on-time performance, which, as many of you will know, is actually a pretty meaningful number, even though it might look slow. But 3.5%, most airline operating officers would kill for that number improvement. So anyway, that's a quick overview of some of the impacts of winter operation and some of the basics. And I'll hand it over to Vincent to go into some of the around ATM here.